Hi everyone, welcome to week 2. For week 2, we're going to be looking at unemployment and inflation, understanding how economic growth is influenced by unemployment and inflation, and then we're going to be focusing on the different variables that we need to key in on this section with regard to having a major impact on unemployment and inflation. For this week, you're going to be reading chapters 7, 8, and 9. You have discussion for week 2, data exercise 1, and homework number 2. First, let's go over the discussion board. For the discussion board, you want to make sure you have an initial post by Thursday, which is at least 3 to 4 paragraphs and contains an APA formatted in-text citation and reference. I'm looking at your content development and the way that you deliver your analysis. So that's very important. You also need 2 peer responses. 2 peer responses can be to any of the questions that I post, as that there's no issue with that, but you need to make sure that you're focusing on those initial posts, because some of you struggled with the initial post last week and you only wrote 1 sentence. You really need to work on your development with your initial post. You're only going to be choosing one of these out of the 11 and focusing on whether the person is counted as unemployed or not, and then explaining your reasoning. So make sure to use a definition in your analysis. Now let's look at homework number 2. For homework number 2, we can get it to open here. Homework number 2, you're going to have 25 multiple choice questions. With this, it's going to be covering each of the sections of chapters 7, 8, and 9. Make sure to focus on the content of these chapters. Let me know if you have any additional questions, as I'll put a lot of resources in the announcement section for you. Then you have the data exercise, which is going to be a large portion of your grade. Here's how you're going to be graded on. You're going to be graded on 4 different parts. The first part is the expenditure approach on how we calculate GDP. I'm looking at excellent, very thorough development, articulation, and analysis. Part 2, you're looking at the income approach to calculating GDP. I'm looking at how you calculated it and what your analysis was about. Part 3, I'm looking at how you evaluated GDP in different countries. Did you understand what GDP represented in other countries? And then part 4, the index of economic freedom. How did you present your ideas and your analysis on the economic freedom? These are the 4 parts you're looking at. If you need me to review or provide more substance on your work, please let me know, as I'd be more than willing to do so. Now, for this week, I want to go over some of the concepts in Chapter 8. Chapter 8 is dealing with a very challenging aspect, which is called the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate is something that everyone is affected by in our economy. And we look at the unemployment rate, we're looking at individuals, and every individual is either calculated as the following out here. You're either employed, which means you're currently working at least 4 hours a week, unemployed, which means you're actively seeking another job, you're 16 years or older, you're either out of the labor force. So anyone is those 3 characteristics. Now we classify the labor force as anyone that's either employed or anyone that's unemployed. To calculate the unemployment rate, it's the unemployed over the labor force. So it doesn't include the people that are not in the labor force. If you look at a graph right here, you'll notice the amount of people that are out of the labor force are about 93,000. Well, I should do it this way. This will make it maybe a little bit easier. Total population, 250 million. In the labor force, 157. Employed, 148. Unemployed, 9 million approximately. Out of the labor force, 93 million. So if you look at that, it's a very small portion, the unemployed. But we focus a lot on the unemployment rate because that tells us a lot about our economy and where we're going in our economy. Now we're looking at this thing called the labor force participation rate. Now the labor force participation rate is looking at what percentage of the adult population is not working. What percentage of the adult population is not working? What percentage of the adult population is either unemployed or employed? That would be the labor force participation rate. It's a very important rate to calculate because it establishes in our economy many different things that we're looking at. So the labor force participation rate tells us approximately 68% of men are participating, while 63% of women are participating in the labor force. When you look at a graph of the unemployment rate, you notice some fluctuations. The unemployment rate classifies full employment as around 3 to 5%. When you look at past recessions, like in 2008, you'll notice that we had a very large recession. And that large recession created many challenges for our economy that we had to deal with. And that large recession created a lot of people that were out of jobs for long and extended periods of time. That's very difficult for people to deal with. They also divide the unemployment rate into a couple different calculations: male and female, by ages, and by minority status as well, or ethnicity. So you notice there's always some key characteristics that we look at with the unemployment rate. Now the one that we want to focus on that's the most important, that really creates a lot of opportunities for us to understand how important this unemployment rate is. People that are unemployed for extended periods of time are very difficult for an economy to deal with. When people are not able to get a job, and given that people are not able to get a job for extended periods of time, that creates a lot of challenges for an economy. And they have to deal with these challenges. And one of the main challenges is, how do you deal with people that are lacking certain skills in the labor force? And the certain skills that are lacking are somewhere where the government has to step in and provide support. When the economy is doing very well, you'll notice that people are unemployed for very short periods of time in our economy. And when people are employed for very short periods of time, the economy is doing very well. Now let's look at some different countries. You notice different countries have varying unemployment rates, and it can start to affect the global economy if the U.S. economy has a high rate compared to other economies. So it's a contagion effect sometimes. Now there's a couple different types of unemployment that we need to focus on. The first one is cyclical unemployment. Cyclical unemployment is individuals that are unemployed because of the fact of cycles of our economy. So the economy goes through ups and downs. And when we go through these up and downs, people are unemployed for an extended period of time because they're lacking certain skills, because of people aren't buying. And when people are not buying, that creates cyclical unemployment. Another one you have is what we call frictional unemployment. Frictional unemployment is individuals that are unemployed because they're looking for work. Okay? People that are in between jobs, they're frictionally unemployed. People that are structurally unemployed are people that are missing the necessary skills. They were laid off because of something with regard to their skills. So those are some of the concepts that we're focusing on this week. If you need me to pre-grade your initial post, your data exercises, please let me know, as I'm more than willing to assist. I look forward to your effort this week.